Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining our first ever 4ARTapp early access webinar in English. My name is Dino Lefkovic and I will be showing you a few things around the 4ARTapp and will tell you a little bit more about 4ART itself within the next hour. I think there is very little time to waste. So before we get into the details, maybe just a few words about myself and about 4ART. I am director at 4ART Technologies. I have been with the company for over 2 years now. And yeah, I have been watching this company and the service that we're building. I've been watching it grow for quite some time. And I'm very excited that we are very soon ready to release our first early access version to the world. Yeah, my usual areas of expertise are in the sales and marketing. So thanks to the coronavirus, my life has been very easy the past few weeks, having to react to all the changes. However, most of us are certainly in the same boat. So we will just have to get through it. All right, so let us begin, and maybe just a quick word on how 4ART Technologies was started. Our founder and CEO, Nico Kipouros, has been an art collector and art trader for over 2 decades. And he and his clients have always had the same 2 major issues. For one, there is a general concern, of course, about forgeries. The result of the forgeries that are within the market is that, for one, of course, there is a detriment to the arts as a cultural good. And there is also, of course, substantial damage when it comes to the forgeries within the market, which are quite substantial. And the other issue being is that trading and working with others within the art market is quite expensive. There are quite a few costs associated with most processes, with most tasks, and doing so, of course, is not quite as good as it should be. And Nico set out to find a solution to that kind of problem, and that is how 4ART came about. And our mission is to use cutting-edge technologies to create a foundation for a unified standard within the global art ecosystem, and specifically for art handling. And our standard, which we're looking to achieve, enables all market participants to collaborate and to exchange and transmit valuable information, always ensuring transparency, security, process efficiency, and of course, a significant reduction in costs. Now, how are we going to achieve that with the 4ARTapp? Well, we're combining 2 technologies. The one, and probably most interesting, is our own patented augmented authentication technology. It is what really sets us apart from most others. It allows anyone, individuals, organizations, any single person to use a standard, so commercially available smartphone, to create and read a digital fingerprint of an art object, making that art object uniquely identifiable using only its surface structure and that little tool that we all carry around with ourselves. And doing so, 4ART is setting out and is creating the first real biometric passport, the artwork passport, combining secure documentation within its system and also, of course, the identification. So it is the same as a human passport, where you find the documentation, some basic information about the person and where that person has been, as well as a way to identify that person, that very specific person, be it through the image or through the fingerprint that we all carry around with ourselves. And for us humans, it's worked quite well, where you take a small thumb and you can usually identify each and every one of the almost 8 billion humans that we currently have in the world. And this works even better with a far more higher resolution, bigger fingerprint when it comes to artworks. What we also save in the biometric passport is a digital birth certificate. So in the optimal case, in the future we envision, is that every artist registers an artwork creates a biometric passport for the works that they have just created. So we can always be sure and we can always track the history of that art object from the very minute that its existence begins. And we also can create, and that's really quite exciting, is we can use the technology that we initially utilized for the digital fingerprint, and we can scale it up to create digital condition reports or condition comparisons. So the technology is good enough and high resolution enough, even using just a normal 12 megapixel smartphone camera, to create high detail digital condition comparisons showing changes to the artwork surface before and after. I will show you a little bit more about that in just a minute. What's also important to note is that we store and secure all the documentation, all the information on high security service structures. We use the same standards that Swiss banks utilize, and we go even a little more beyond that, having a multi-layer security system and structure to make sure that we don't just differentiate between user data and artwork data, because artwork data is far more important to us, but that we also make sure that that data cannot be stolen or cannot be manipulated afterwards. And to make sure that the information cannot be manipulated, we also use blockchain technology. Now, we're not the first ones to use a blockchain, but the blockchain, before getting into too much detail, is really good at securing and storing information for long periods of time and making sure that that information cannot be changed later on. So once uploaded and secured in the blockchain, you can be sure that the information that is linked to it is valid and is as secure as possible. If someone has tried to tamper it with that information, it's always within the transparent system to easily identify those changes and make sure that the documentation, whatever data, whatever information you have, is valid. Plus, it allows for a complete track and trace system. So what we do and what we use for the blockchain is to hash and encrypt all the transactions, all the processes, all the movements of an artwork, and place that on the blockchain in a hashed value. So the information itself, the artworks themselves, they are not linked to the blockchain directly. However, we can make sure that every upload, every registration, every change, every identification, every single task performed related to the artwork, that process is linked to the blockchain and is secured, and you can always be sure that the track and trace record, the very high definition track and trace record, is always true and is always complete. And of course, it allows us to use smart contracts, so we can automate and simplify many processes, many transactions within the art world between different parties, between different stakeholders. It doesn't matter. It makes it a lot simpler and a lot faster, and of course cheaper as well. The key features of the 4ARTapp, just to run it over very quickly before we get into it. At the center, of course, is the digital fingerprint. So we read the artwork's surface in a very high resolution and create and even more importantly, probably read the digital fingerprint using that very simple tool. And we, of course, combine that with the documentation in the artwork passport. So you can always be sure that the documentation that you've secured can always be related to a very specific art object. It doesn't matter if it's a single original, a single artwork, or if it's maybe a serial print, be it a series of 10 or maybe a series of 100. You can differentiate and uniquely identify each and every one of these specific artworks, and always be sure that the documentation, the history, the provenance of that artwork is for that very specific artwork and not for one that looks just like it. We have the digital protocols. So, any transfer, any change, any movement, anything that is regarding the artwork is tracked and is completed within the system. Again, always linked to that passport, always found in it. And as I've touched on earlier, the digital condition report, the scaling up of the technology, allowing anyone to create very high resolution condition reports and comparisons using the smartphone camera. It takes roughly 5 minutes per square meter. So, very large artworks do take a few minutes. However, for one, it's a lot faster than, you know, a normal condition report, and it is also a lot less expensive, costing roughly 30 euros per square meter, taking roughly 5 minutes. And as you will see in just a minute, the resolution and the effect is very high. There are additional features, of course, which are not quite as primary as concerning right now. For one being copyrights. So of course, when an artist registers their artwork, they can directly link to the artwork and then can secure their copyright, secure or create a digital catalog raisonné, and then in the future can receive and manage their royalties in that system, always, of course, being secure. We have high security. I've touched on it earlier. We are using high security server structures. We have currently a total of 4 server structures, and we split up all the data sets into 4 pieces, distributed in different security systems, and then also use the blockchain again as a secondary security level to again make sure that all transactions and all the data is valid and hasn't been changed after the first creation or after the first entry. We've also been working with Munich Re, the world's largest reinsurance company, and their sub-company Ergo Insurance, to create a very unique insurance package based on this technology that we're using. They're very interested, of course, in the condition comparison technology, and we've been working with them for quite some time. They're a wonderful partner, and they're very excited to launch very soon and to see just how they can fully revolutionize the art insurance market. There are more innovative use cases that will be added later on. Some of them have already been added. So we have a digital catalog raisonné. We have, of course, collection management. What we have in the app right now already is an implemented VR application. So you can see your artworks within a virtual reality gallery just in the same app. We will also have, or have in parts already, AI-supported image recognition and digital audio guides, for example, for museums. And these are sort of the core features. And to give you an idea just how high resolution that technology is, this is a condition comparison performed using just a normal iPhone with a normal camera. And as you can see, it's so detailed that we can see individual fingerprints left behind by someone touching the artwork. At the top, we have a few light reflections. At the bottom, we have a little bit of dust and dirt that have settled, you know, on these lips right down here. But this is as high resolution as we can go. Again, the fingerprint cannot be seen by human eyes, so a normal expert would miss this detail. However, with our technology, anyone can use just a standard smartphone and create comparisons like these, so you can really see if your artwork has been damaged, what has been changed, and you can handle it accordingly. In a different view, we can see here again the fingerprint being highlighted in sort of a light report. And there are a couple of different condition comparisons you can take. There is one which we call the spot check, where you can just see, hey, I think there's a spot, you know, an area of the artwork that may have been damaged. Let me just quickly create a comparison so I can see if the condition has changed truly from the last time that I've seen it. There is the light check, which means that you check the condition of the whole art piece, of the complete artwork, and then you can see more details. And of course, also the professional version, which is very important, for example, for restorers or those who want to see every single detail. And that shows even more. So you have, you know, light crack structures, maybe a bit of dust over here, and that gives you really all the changes, but that's probably too high resolution for most users. One last thing that I just want to reiterate, and something that's very important to us, is that we want to, or we are approaching the art world, the art market, with open arms. So we want to always connect all other stakeholders, all other entities, be it the artists, be it the gallery, but also restorers or insurers or the logistics or any other institution, because this kind of system, even though only being foundational at this point, only being the very beginning, the more entities use the system, the more data is entered into the history of an art object, the more often it's identified, the stronger the provenance, the stronger the history gets, and the more utility all users have in that kind of system. So it's really important for us to have everyone on board. Everyone has some kind of added value using the 4ARTapp, and we want to unify everyone in a single standard ecosystem, including other partners who are working with us already or will be working with us to offer the best product and the most usable product for the market possible. Again, the more users we have, the more people use that kind of system, the better it is for all users. There's also more to come, but I don't want to get into too much detail. I mean, we have, as I've touched on before, the implementation of further art market or complementary providers. We have the tokenization, for example, something that the finance industry is very interested in. That kind of security system would make that kind of model more feasible. We are also looking to integrate very soon the KYC service for galleries using our technology, which of course is still a pretty major issue within the gallery world. There's custom service solutions for other partners. Again, this virtual reality functionality has already been implemented in a beta version, so we can check that out in a little bit. And there's more to come. But before we get into the robotic systems and all the additional tools, I think it will be a good time for me to switch over. Just 1 second, let me activate and share my phone screen. So here we go. I hope everyone can see the screen properly. So let me go into the 4ARTapp. And what we see here is the basic menu screen, the basic welcome screen. I've, of course, already registered myself and a few artworks. And this is my collection. So the artworks that I have registered, some of these are nicer than some others. I mean, there's flyers in here, but it doesn't matter. We want to try as many materials and as many possibilities as possible. Currently, we're supporting roughly 2,300 material combinations in both the underlying material, the surface, as well as the material used, so be it acrylic or oil or pencils, or it doesn't really matter. There is quite a few combinations possible. And this is my art collections, as you can see. What else can we see? Well, on the very top left, we have our menu structure. Here I can change my profile. I can check on my credit balance. I can manage employees. So for example, if I am a logistics provider, I can have employees and give them certain authorities to, for example, identify artworks or not be able to write information at all. I can also add different service providers. So for example, if I have a family office or someone who is managing my collection for me, I can give them authority to write information or to manage my collection through this. There's notifications, so just whatever has been happening, and videos, which will help me if I have questions and I'm unsure on how to use certain services. There's also, of course, support. So if help is required at any time, you can just go through the function here and a few of the basics, such as terms and condition and so on. The bell icon on the top left-hand side shows me my notifications. So here I have, everything that sort of happened. And whenever, for example, someone wants to share an artwork with me or wants to transmit one or whatever, I find that kind of notification up here. And then looking at my art collection, I have certain filters and different ways of displaying my art collection. And one of the major tabs is the shared with you. So these are artworks that don't belong to me, that I don't have access to, but that others have shared with me. But I will get into a bit more detail on that later on. So what we also have at the top right is the camera, and it gives us two modes. For one, I have the discovery mode. These modes are both still in development, still in a beta function, but we wanted to show them anyways. So let me activate the VR gallery. I hope the application doesn't mind. It doesn't always approve of running the application, running the 4ARTapp, and sharing the screen as well. So if there is some technical issues at some point, please excuse us that. It's just the phone reaching its limits sometimes. So let's activate it. And what I can do in the VR gallery is, it's a very simple tool, again, in beta, but we wanted to show this function already. Since it's a nice little tool, I can see my artworks in a virtual reality. And I can also, of course, use the shared artworks that others have shared with me in that gallery as well. I can go ahead and move a little closer and check that out very easily. I mean, this is more of a little toy, an entertainment function. However, we feel it's a nice little tool to, for example, share your collection with others, be it friends or colleagues, or maybe someone who is interested in buying the artworks. Even more than that, you can then go ahead and flip your phone to the side. It doesn't show quite properly, but if you have a 3D glass where you can place your smartphone in, you can have a true 3D experience within the system. Again, it's only very basic, so the gallery isn't quite, doesn't look quite extraordinary. However, we wanted to show this feature because one of the unique things is that it doesn't require any other steps. Any artwork that is registered, anything that has been shared, is in your gallery, and you can enjoy it right away and have a little fun with that. All right, so let me move a little away from the laptop and let us maybe get into the meat of it. And I will start and register an artwork. So let me then click on register artwork, of course. So I click on it. Currently, this is free. It's free. I mean, the whole app is going to be free, so not just the download, but also all these services are free within the early access version. So, if you want to go ahead and register all your artworks, you can go ahead and do that. The early access version is only slightly limited in its functions. You can do just about anything. The only thing that is currently not supported is the identification. So you can create the fingerprint. However, the reading is currently not enabled. That will be enabled within May. And then about a month later, the condition reporting, the condition comparison will be enabled as well. This is currently my camera running. I mean, here's my little hand. As you can see, this is the shared information. We will be scanning and registering this little lithography, this serial print. It's, of course, artistically not maybe the most impressive. However, one of the major benefits is that because it's a serial print and not a unique artwork, there's two that look identical to the human eye, so it's very hard to tell apart. However, I can show you how our software manages that quite easily. All right, to register an artwork, I, of course, click Pay and Register, so I will go ahead. Now I'm getting a few tips on how to create the best images, the best fingerprints possible. These are only helpful, slightly helpful, simple tips. One requirement that we have to create the best fingerprint possible is to have proper lighting conditions. So it's surprising how dark many spaces are, and it's also quite impressive how much light dark colors, for example, don't allow to get out. And I mean, it's a very simple rule. If there's too little light, too little information, too little photons hit the camera, and the fingerprint isn't as high quality, and then maybe in the future, even especially if the artwork has been has received some changes, maybe has been exposed to improper conditions for some time, there may be an issue or some trouble identifying the artwork. So proper lighting conditions, just a generally well-lit environment is more than enough. All right, so let's continue. The first step is to create an image and to simply take an overview image of the artwork. So I will do so just like this. Now the system takes 4 images in total with different lighting conditions. You can see here low light flash was used just to create the best image possible, but to allow for something where there is no reflections. So I would think that looks pretty good. I have a generally well-lit environment. I can also add a backside, but I'll not do so right now. However, I will crop the image slightly because that's what it's going to look like within my collection, the first artwork. And you know, I'd like that to look quite nice. So that looks pretty good, pretty straight, wonderful. So that's done. And then we will continue and create the actual, no, actually there's one step in between. The next one being is the entry of the basic information. So in this case, the artwork is called New York. Let's call it New York webinar. The artist is Dr. Pepper. However, I'll just abbreviate that. We have the year 2020. It's not too important right now. And the artwork was created using simple toner. I can also, if, for example, it requires, like, for example, the artwork has multiple materials like toner and acrylic, of course, I could choose as many as are required. And the base material, very simple, is paper. Again, I can check that out right here. Wonderful. Proceed. Maybe to go back real quick. I mean, as you can see, there are quite a few items in the app. So you can be sure to always find something. If you don't find something that fits quite so well, you can also have very simple, all-encompassing terms. Yeah, so that's usually very simple and very easy to do. Then I add the size of the artwork. That's very simple. It's A3, so I can, for example, move the slider around. I can use the plus or minus buttons, or if I'm even more impatient, I can simply enter the data right away. I can also add an artwork location. I'm currently in our very empty offices in Zug, so I will enter the artwork location. That is optional. All right, so now we will be going to the actual creation of the fingerprint. We will create or register 3 individual fingerprints, and each fingerprint is a 4-step process. In the first step, I choose an area of the artwork. So let me choose the C, and I will move closer until the circle in the middle turns green. There we go. And then the system automatically takes an image, makes sure that it can find enough data, enough information in that image. And then I can confirm and then move on to the second step, which is the actual creation of the fingerprint. As you can see, I have a little guidance ball being projected, you know, in augmented reality onto the surface that I can follow around. It then leads me into where I should be. And then again, I just move closer. Currently, the circle is white, so I know I'm too far away. If it turns red, I'm too close. But if it's green, I can register the artwork, and you can see it's already registering. The system is set up to be used by hand, so a little bit of shaking is nothing to be concerned about. It's actually quite easy to do. Once you've registered, you know, 2-3 artworks, the process takes a few minutes at most. So, and the third step, I locate where I've created the fingerprint, in that case, up top here at the C, just to make it a lot easier to find the registered fingerprints later on. And then to finalize the first fingerprint, I just asked to confirm that fingerprint once again. So the process is the same. I have my guidance ball. I move in a little bit until everything is green. And now the fingerprint is being confirmed. Takes 10, maybe 15 seconds. And there we go. So that's the first fingerprint completed. It was a very easy process, as you can see. And now I just repeat that same step 2 more times. In the end, we only really require 1 fingerprint, but to always make sure that maybe the artwork has been damaged, or maybe one of these fingerprints isn't quite as good as we would like, you know, 3 makes it very easy to always identify the artwork. So let's go and choose the Macy's over here. Again, I move closer. There we go. The image was taken. So let's see, does it like it? Yes, wonderful. I confirm. Keep it easy. I don't move a whole lot. I have my ball being projected. It's a little slow right now. I can tell the app doesn't quite appreciate me sharing in Zoom, but that shouldn't worry us too much. So there we go. Again, second fingerprint is registered. Now I just place it on the overview image so I can find it easier later on and then confirm once again. And then we're on to the last one. So let's go ahead. There we go. Macy's confirm. And then once again, I have my ball being projected. Follow it in, it guides me. And there we go. Keeping the ball in the circle, it's a very easy game. There's also an audio guidance for each and every step. However, I've turned that off for now, just because I don't want to compete with the automatic voice. But it makes it very easy, and it shows and it guides you in each and every step to move closer or to maybe relocate a little bit. So, you know, it's a process that each and every one of us can certainly do with very little testing and with very little trial and error. Okay, let's choose the last one. Let's go Puglia. Again, I'm just choosing these spots on things that I can remember quite easily. You know, I could do it wherever, but to, you know, ensure that if something happens to the artwork, I can always identify at least one fingerprint. I, you know, distribute them, you know, over the complete image. So again, I'm waiting for my ball. Here we go. And again, I follow it in, you know, staying roughly 10 to 15 centimeters away from the art piece. And then a bit outside. There we go. So, second fingerprint created. And there we go. I saw the transmission, the sharing lagged a little bit, but seems to be fine now. All right, last upload. Processing the collected data. Yeah, I can tell the app is a little slow right now, but that's just due to the sharing. Again, it doesn't quite appreciate that. Confirm the position, and then we once again confirm the fingerprint. Again, it's projected very easily. I follow it in, circle turns green. I can show if I go too close, again, you can see a circle turns red. So I'll move back a little bit. I'm not using any additional tools. I'm just holding the phone with my hand, using two hands just to make it a bit more comfortable for me. But otherwise, the process is very easy. And that's already it. That's the identification, the creation of the fingerprints done. Again, we are using 3 just to be sure that we can always identify an artwork. If an artwork is very large, so, you know, 10 by 10 feet or whatever, you can also choose to create and to register more fingerprints, but that is up to the user. Now we're in the confirmation screen, so I can have a look at my artwork. Overview image looks pretty good. I could edit that later on. I have the basic data regarding my artwork, you know, the name, artist, etc. So that looks pretty good. So let me go ahead and register the artwork. And then in the last optional step, I can also add a few more details. So I can just go ahead and finish the registration. I could also enter provenance. Provenance in this case being, you know, important events in the history of an artwork. So for example, if it was at a major exhibition in a museum or anything that may really add also value to the artwork, you can place that in the provenance. You can also add documentation. So, you know, previous condition reports or whatever documentation that you may have. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll click on add documents, and then I will press the plus again. I can choose to just upload an image, or I can take an image of a new one. This is a condition report or one of the pages of the condition report unrelated to this artwork, but let me just go ahead and upload that. Looks pretty good. Again, here I can just crop it and make it look nice. You know, I'm a detail-oriented person, so, you know, would like it to look good. Let's just call it document, but also I could also call it, for example, condition report and the year. All right, that looks pretty good. I will add the document and then I will continue. Let me upload everything and then I'm done. So let's go to the artwork. The artwork is being uploaded right now, as you can see here. So that also enables you, oh, it's already done, wonderful. So that would enable you, of course, to register an artwork offline. So if you are, somewhere where the internet connection isn't quite as good, you can perform the registration. And then once you are connected to the internet, again, you then just upload the information and then you will find it here. So this is the artwork we've just registered. And this is what the artwork passport looks like. So we have the overview image here. I can also scale that up. I can look into more detail. Don't care about that too much right now. And then at the bottom here, I have my basic information. So, everything that is regarding the artwork. I can also add additional details if I'd like. I then have my documents. So here you can find all the documents that have been uploaded that are connected to the artwork. I have my provenance. In this case, I haven't added anything. So the only thing is that the artwork has been registered. Of course, an important event in the provenance. And then we have the track and trace record. Again, these are all the processes that are linked and secured by the blockchain. So in this case, we've only had the artwork registration. And as you can see, we see it's been registered, the date and the time, and we can be sure that these transactions are always valid. Then at the bottom, I have the major actions. So in the left-hand side, you can see the authentication or identification. Again, this is not going to be enabled in the early access version for the first month. However, the registration works just fine. We also have the condition repair comparison. That's the feature that will be added in June, where you can secure the condition of an artwork and compare it later on. And then we have the transfers. These are all enabled in the first version. And if we go on here, we can see what kind of transactions or transfers I can do. So I can transfer the ownership, meaning, for example, I'm a gallerist or an artist, or maybe an auction house, and I sell the artwork to a new owner. This is what I use. I transfer the ownership. And the important thing to note is that the artwork passport, which I have access to now, would then leave my app, my account, and I would no longer have access to it. I can, of course, have the buyer share the artwork with me, so I can continue looking at the information. But as it's currently set up, because we want to make sure that the privacy of collectors and all those concerned is always kept, once the ownership of an artwork has been transferred, the access to the information, especially the provenance and the track and trace and all the documentation, also leaves your account or the account of the person who transfers the artwork away. We also have the loaning. So of course, if you have an artwork that is being loaned to a museum or what have you, you can initiate and control that using the loaning function. You can have a location change. So if the artwork moves or is moved somewhere else, we can enable that as well. And we can also change the possessor. So for example, if you have a transport, a logistics company, a service provider transporting your artworks for you, or somewhere else where the possession, so not the ownership, but the possession who has the physical art piece, if that changes, that can be tracked as well. And you can always be sure that the person holding onto the artwork doesn't do anything improper with it. We can see one of those as well here. So this is an artwork, for example, that I am in possession of. I could hand it back, but in this case, I'll hold on to it a little bit longer. I can see the basic information as well as the track and trace. However, what I cannot do is look into the documentation, since that hasn't been enabled in this case. So let's go back to our registered work. Let's maybe show you something small, something simple before having to add more devices. So for example, if we do a location change, let's say we move the artwork to Zurich, for example, we have two options. In this case, we can do this ourselves. So we place the artwork in the trunk of our car and then move to Zurich. So we can do this. Yes, wonderful. Let's enable. Yes, everything is good. And then the completed change, wonderful. Let's do so. We've seen location started up top. And then if we go into the track and trace, we can see the location change has been initiated, and then the location has been changed. We can also see, for example, how long that transaction took, as we have two different entries. If we do it a bit more complicated, so let's say we want to use a logistics company, a service provider, so we have a third party performing that change of location, we can also do so. So let's confirm everything. Yes, back to the overview. The relocation has been started, and now I have, rather than accepting or finishing up the move, I have a handover artwork. If I press on here, this should be done at the step where the artwork is actually handed over, and then I could enter the email address of the new possessor, of the person now holding onto that artwork. Again, as you've seen previously, it would then give me access to that passport, so I can always track what kind of artworks I'm in possession of, and it would also track, so within the track and trace record of the artwork, so I could always see who has been in possession of the artwork at what time, and giving me the ability to have a very highly detailed history of the artwork. Okay, so let me cancel that because I don't want to dive too deeply into everything, so let's do so. I also wanted to quickly touch on the share function. So this is something that's really interesting, not just for collectors who want to, for example, share artworks with their friends or colleagues, or want to impress someone. But for example, if you are a gallerist or an artist or whoever who wants to share artworks, with other users, to provide information to them in a very secure and very easily controlled environment, you can do so here. Oh. And that's when someone just called me. I apologize. Let me get back into the system right here. Okay. Wonderful. So back into the 4ARTapp. Again, apologies. So if I want to share an artwork, and I can choose who to share it with explicitly, so the artwork information, especially documentation or provenance, doesn't get into the wrong hands, I push the button at the top and right hand, and then share with people. And now I enter the other 4ARTapp user, their email address. If they have an app already, they will get an invite to view the information. If they don't, they get an invite to download the 4ARTapp. And then after the basic registration, so just entering their login information, they can view the information. I have a choice of sharing just the basic content. So that again is just the basic information, title, artist, and so on. Or for example, I have someone who is interested in buying my artwork. I can also share with them the extended information. I can also have the option, for example, to share the basic information. And then if they show interest, I can then add the provenance and the documentation to their shared information so they can see more. I can also choose how long the information can be shared. I can use either for 5 days or permanently, but I can also, of course, stop sharing the information manually if I want to. All right, so that's a wonderful tool. Again, you have complete control over who you share the information with and what kind of information you share, and that's really quite important. Okay, so let's maybe go ahead and then show the authentication, the identification. The process is very much the same as the registration. So I go ahead and then pay and authenticate. I click continue, all these screens we've seen before, and then I can see where the artwork registration has been performed. So I proceed, and then it's almost the same. So I see I have my ball being projected. I move in. And here we go. That's the first fingerprint read. Again, it's a very simple process. And then I will move to the second one. Again, I'm shown where the second fingerprint is. I proceed, and then I'm brought in. Wonderful. Here we go. Again, took just a few seconds, and now the last one. There we go. It didn't even want the third one. It has already authenticated the artwork. So it showed me that, yes, it's very, very sure. The scale may be a little bit misleading. So it's not 60 or 75% sure. It's a logarithmic scale. So the line that you see, the smaller line, it signifies, you know, an assurance, or it gives a certainty of over 98%, and then we move into the high 99 percentiles. So it is already very, very sure. We can also quickly look at the condition comparison. So it shows us exactly where the differences are in a heat map. So everything that is red and blue showed some kind of differences, especially outside of the circle. We have a bit of optical distortion. That's just normal because of the camera modules placed within for smartphones. So you can see in the center, there's very, very, very little difference, and it is quite sure that this is the very specific artwork. Now, of course, it's going to be a lot more fun if we can also show the negatives. So again, here is the camera. This is the artwork that we've previously registered. So let me take this one away and then add the one that looks exactly like it. Again, this is a serial print. So, you know, using human eyes, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Let's go ahead and start the authentication process. Again, let's continue. The spot is the same. It should probably find it quite well, yes, but we can see already that the point, our ball is a little bit more jumpy. It's not quite as sure. So let's go ahead and scan it. Okay, first one done. Let's go to the second one. Again, here as well, it already isn't quite as sure. I mean, it's still quite stable, but I can already notice a difference. And then let's do the third one, again, down here. So there we go. Now we have recorded and recorded all the 3 fingerprints. Now the information is being uploaded to the system. This will take a few seconds depending on the internet connection. You can see the bar progressing. Again, the main idea isn't to authenticate art pieces or to find forgeries or non-originals. We have a bit of a challenge, because even though artworks may look exactly identical to the human eye, so you wouldn't be able to compare the two, or you wouldn't be able to distinguish the two, the software is very detailed, and sometimes has trouble guiding you to the correct point, because even though it may look the same to the human eye, the technology says very differently. And as you can see here, again, the artworks are, I will show you in real life, but we don't have that option. The artworks are absolutely identical. These are serial prints, but the technology, our technology, is extremely sure that this is not the same one. As you can see right there, it is. I couldn't authenticate the art piece. If I would be sure that this is the same, but I know it's not, I could, or I should maybe redo. However, we can look at the condition comparison again here in the heat map. Everything that is red and blue is different, and as you can see, the differences are substantial. So we can be very, very sure that this is not the art piece that we have first registered. And again, this is not just a neat little trick, but also very important for us to be sure, again, that the documentation, the thing that gives the artwork validity, that gives it value especially, is always connected, isn't just secured and in an immutable, non-forgeable way. However, it is always connected to that very specific art piece. So you can't receive a copy, a forgery, something that isn't like it. The artwork is always as authentic as the documentation that you've connected with it. Let me quickly get into the shared artworks just so you can see the differences before we end this webinar. So on the left, I have an artwork shared with me by a colleague. As you can see here, I only have access to the basic information, so I can look at the art piece, I can check it out in a bit more detail. However, I cannot look into the documentation, I cannot look into the provenance, the track and trace record, so the privacy of the original collector is secured. My other colleague shared an artwork with me, as you can see, always placed up top in being shown as shared, where I can also look into the provenance, the track and trace record, as well as the documentation. As you can see here, the artwork has been shared and authenticated a number of times in the last little while, and each and every time this information is secured. So it is really a living provenance. You don't have to concern yourself specifically with creating a provenance or a track and trace record. Whatever function you use, if you have any transfer, any identification, any condition comparison, will be secured. So you have a very highly detailed and very strong provenance using this kind of application. So that is really all there is to show at this current point. As you can see, it's very easy to register an artwork. It's very easy to register your artwork collection. You know, if you don't have too much documentation or with a bit of documentation, you know, in registration, I've been as fast as 5 minutes per artwork, having everything nice and neat, but let's say about 10, maybe 12 minutes, including documentation, you know, to create a unforgeable, always secure artwork passport that can also uniquely identify each and every artwork using no outside technology, using only your smartphone and its camera. And this is, again, only the foundation. You know, we don't want to lose focus. I mean, this is already a big step. That's why we're also starting with the small campaign and an early access, just because we want to slowly get people involved, start testing, start using this kind of system. That's why we also offer it free of charge until the full launch in June of this year, just because we want to have as many people on board and enjoying this kind of new functionality in once, where more and more people use this kind of technology, this kind of system, and really supplement the trust that much of the artwork is based on, with security and certainty, still having trust, but, you know, having the foundation of security and certainty to support that. Then we can start enabling more functions. We would like to connect with more and more partners just to provide the best service and the best experiences for all users involved, not just the artist, not just the gallerist, but also the museum, also the logistics provider, the insurance, the exhibition, you know, restorers, anyone who would really have some benefit, and that seems to be everyone. You know, I mean, currently we live in a very, very digital world, and this is the kind of system that you need to provide that kind of security if you live in a digital, globally connected world as we do right now. This is the kind of system that really enable you and your business and your clients to be really future-proof, to have the kind of technology that would set you apart from others. So I think that is everything so far. I thank you very, very much for joining us and for staying and listening and watching what the 4ARTapp can do. I would very much and very gladly invite you to download the app for yourself beginning next week, April 15th. Again, the app is free of charge, free to use. Just register, download, authenticate yourself, and then you can start registering your artworks and trying it out for yourself.